Savinho fails to answer critics as Manchester City debate rages on Savinho was one of many who failed to impress in the Champions League defeat to Bayer Leverkusen. But the Manchester City man has struggled for large parts of this season. Plenty of Manchester City players' stock went up by not starting in midweek. 10 changes contributed to a drab performance and a dire defeat to Bayer Leverkusen as the Blues suffered a Champions League setback. None of the starters staked their claim for more regular involvement, and it felt the latest in a line of such showings from Savinho. The 21-year-old was wanted by Tottenham in the summer, then picked up a mysterious injury that ruled him out of any games during the transfer window, and posted pictures of packed suitcases on his social media, none of which created a positive impression with the City fanbase. Ultimately, he stayed put at the Etihad and was then handed a bumper new City contract in a significant show of support by the club's hierarchy. But after a bright showing in Spain against Villarreal last month, there has been precious little from the Brazilian in recent weeks. He was poor off the bench at Newcastle United, spurning a late chance, and was peripheral in midweek. Speaking on this week's Talking City podcast, recorded ahead of the game against Leverkusen, the winger was a topic of debate. He is maddeningly inconsistent. He seemed to get a lot of criticism on Saturday, and it was a bad cameo. But there has got to be more there. He clearly fluttered his eyelashes at Tottenham in the summer, and was clearly interested in making that move. City always say they won't stand in a player's way if they want to go. I don't get the impression that City were that keen on selling him. They did shut it down reasonably early, and then he got a new contract after one average season, I would say. That performance at Villarreal, he was brilliant. And you thought he was stepping it up and was going to be the player City need him to be, and he just can't put it together. Pep has gone to this system where he is only playing one winger, if that, at the moment, and it makes it harder for Savinho to get in the team. If you are going to play one player who is going to go wide, it is going to be Doku at the moment. Savinho didn't do a lot last season, and then was at least very open to the idea of going, and then got rewarded with a new contract. He is having too many games where he is stinking the place out. The decision to give him a new contract, that seemed mad. He had 4 years left on his old contract, he had done okay last season, and is only 21. I found that bizarre. He isn't a player where there is interest from someone else that means we better tie him down to a long-term contract. He hasn't become that player yet. That decision was odd to say the least, and he has then not kicked on. But we maybe had this conversation last season around Doku to a degree, and it does feel like he has kicked on as a young player and a winger. And it is difficult to be a winger in the Premier League compared to anywhere else. Savinho has the problem of wingers not being picked in this City team. So there does need to be a step back. But it's that emotional response of him wanting to go, and he then gets a new contract he probably doesn't deserve, and he can't change games. Guardiola must rate him because he was the most used at the CWC, and it did feel at the start of the season that City's most likely 11 had Savinho in it, and now maybe he'll be lucky to get 20 minutes off the bench every other week. Manchester City might have got their transfer strategy wrong in 2025. Manchester City have had a busy year in the transfer market, but at the end of it, the question is how much the team has improved. This year was supposed to be the start of a rebuild at Manchester City. Big names were shown the door, and both transfer windows in 2025 were dominated by new arrivals, with more than £350 million spent in January and the summer. In total, there are 9 players in Pep Guardiola's squad who have joined the club this year, with a further 2 out on loan, in Vita Rice and Sverre Nypan. The spending spree has added strength to a squad that fell apart during an unprecedented injury crisis last season. But after back-to-back defeats and 3 losses in 7 games in all competitions, the question is whether City have pursued the right transfer strategy this year. They have added depth, but have they added enough quality? If everyone was fit and available, of the 9 players signed this year, there might only be one who is absolutely guaranteed a start in Guardiola's strongest team. That is £26 million goalkeeper Gianluigi Donnarumma, who has offered an upgrade on Ederson. With Rodri still struggling for fitness, the £50 million spent on Nico Gonzalez is looking a wise investment. The Spaniard has improved this season, but it is evident he is still some way short of his compatriots' level. As Guardiola said recently, when Rodri is fit, he will play. Elsewhere in midfield, it seems likely that one of Ryan Cherki or Tijani Reinders would start. The only games where neither has started this season have been at Huddersfield in the Carabao Cup and Villarreal in the Champions League. Which one of them gets the nod is the subject of plenty of debate at the moment. Cherki was in fine form a couple of weeks ago, but struggled from the start against Liverpool and Newcastle, and was disappointing in a 25-minute cameo from the bench in the midweek defeat to Bayer Leverkusen. He is still only 22 and looks a bargain at £34 million on his day. But he is adapting to a new league, and his style of play means there will be times when he is on the periphery of games. Reinders looked a snip at £46 million in the early weeks of the season, but after winning Man of the Match against Wolves on his Premier League debut, he has gone backwards. He has failed to score since, despite scoring 15 times for AC Milan this season, and isn't leaving his mark on games from midfield. He has been on the bench for the last 3 Premier League games and spent the final quarter against Leverkusen playing at right back. If this was his chance to prove he should be back in the side, then he didn't take it. Omar Marmoush is the most expensive of the 2025 recruits at £59 million, and it's probably fair to say City wouldn't be in the Champions League without his goals in the second half of last season. But his standards have slipped this term, and his only goal in 11 appearances came against Swansea City. Abdulkadir Kusanov has looked a relatively reliable stand-in at right-back and centre-back, but on the left, it has been a dispiriting couple of months for Ryan Ait-Nouri. The £31 million summer signing from Wolves has lost his place to Nico O'Reilly and was taken off at half-time against Bayer Leverkusen after a nightmare first-half performance. So if Guardiola had everyone fit and was picking his best, it could potentially look like this: Donnarumma, Matheus Nunes, Ruben Dias, Josko Gvardiol, Nico O'Reilly, Rodri, Bernardo Silva, Phil Foden, Savinho, Jeremy Doku, Erling Haaland. It could be that you take Savinho out, given the Brazilian has been poor as well, and bring in one of Reinders or Cherki. But it goes to show that the recruitment this year isn't yet bringing about the improvement required. The Blues are better than last season, but have still lost a third of their 12 Premier League games. After a couple of weeks of positivity following the win against Liverpool, the last few days have left people in little doubt as to the gap that exists to Arsenal, who, by contrast, have had a brilliant few days. Perhaps City would have been better off aiming for a couple of big signings this summer, rather than shopping in the mid-price bracket. They have had success with that before, but consistently getting those sorts of deals right is very difficult, as this season is now proving. When Manchester City signed Tijani Reinders from AC Milan, fans thought they had just witnessed the beginning of another Etihad fairy tale. One stunning debut, a rocket goal, and an assist to Erling Haaland had the blue side of Manchester dreaming of a midfield revolution. But 3 months later, the excitement has turned into questions, the promise into uncertainty, and the City fan base has started to worry. Tijani Reinders, and the issue that has Manchester City fans worried Manchester City midfielder Tijani Reinders has split opinion since his move from AC Milan in the summer S1E1. When Tijani Reinders posted that caption to social media alongside an image of him celebrating an incredible Manchester City debut, he had Blues dreaming of a blockbuster signing. 3 months on, and nothing has come close to living up to the pilot. Reinders had an unbelievable start to life with Pep Guardiola's side, scoring an outstanding goal himself before setting up Erling Haaland for an even better one. The manager hinted afterwards about a team that would use counter-attacks more regularly this season, and the former AC Milan midfielder appeared to be a perfect addition for that. Except, it hasn't really worked out like that. Reinders did very well at Arsenal in September to burst forward and tee up Haaland to score again, and actually has more assists, 5, than any other City player this season, but is yet to add another goal. The overall contributions haven't been enough for him to keep his place in the team, and he offered little against Leverkusen to suggest that he should be brought back in. There was a moment, however, with City trailing when space opened up for Reinders, and he lashed a shot towards goal only for Mark Flecken to continue his excellent night and beat the ball away. That, really, has been the story of his start at the Etihad more than the debut performance. Against Monaco, Brentford, Everton, and even Aston Villa, he has gone close to scoring, but hasn't quite been able to. It will come as long as I come in those positions. "I've been a bit unlucky, but I have trust that it will come," he said after the Villa game. The stats indicate that he has not scored the goals that he should have in either Premier League or Champions League, yet at the same time there is lots of promise, and it does feel like he would be being judged very differently if he had 5 goals so far, a reasonable expectation, and one that nobody bar Haaland can match in all competitions, rather than just that one effort from the opening day. It hasn't happened, so the goalposts are marked the same, and it's worth considering that Reinders could do better with his finishing. He worked hard to improve that aspect of his game at AC Milan and saw the rewards, so there is no reason he should not be able to do it again. There is also the inbuilt fear from City fans of trying to replace their ultimate midfield. Rodri proved impossible to have adequate cover for too long. İlkay Gundogan wasn't really replaced when he left for Barcelona after the treble. Reinders is a belated attempt at that. And the greatest of all playmakers, Kevin De Bruyne, also departed in the summer. Supporters are understandably anxious about whether the replacements will be up to the task, because a number already have not. At the same time, the Dutch international really isn't far from seeing the efforts that have gone in when he has played for his national team, or for AC Milan hitting the back of the net for City. If he can start seeing those efforts go